a little last time we were together in August, we sort of left off. We had sort of gone through like what I call the methodology of an IEP. Like, how does the process happen? What is the document, the format of the document? And I'm sure that you all have become intimately acquainted with them now, that you've been in school for well over a month. And then we talked about basically what I call OT in action. And so we were talking about outcome areas, and I'm still on that. I'm still on the first screen. I haven't switched PowerPoints, but we talked about the various areas, like what we do in the classroom, what we do in the playground, the lunchroom, school bus, hallway. We talked a little bit about sensory needs, social emotional needs, transition plans, and services. So we'll come back to those areas toward the end of this PowerPoint, again, as we look at intervention and how we can brainstorm intervention together on that, okay? So I just wanted to kind of orient you to where we left off last time and where we're going. So tonight, basically what you're here for, and why am I here again? Why did I log in? We call these learning objectives in the academic world and everywhere else. Sometimes, again, I want to inspire you to provide just the most outstanding service that you can within your realm, what you have, the tools. As always, I think we try to seek excellence in aspects of our service provision. So part of what we believe here at Cobb Pediatric is to help give you those tools, and especially with Cobb Connects, our new learning management system that hopefully everybody's logged into and maybe been able to peruse the various resources that are there. So we want to give you tools to be able to provide excellence, and not only to raise your knowledge level, but to help you give students more of what they need and what you want to give them. We're also going to talk about defining components of a measurable IEP goal. We did not get to that last time. I'll try not to spend a horrible amount of time on it, but that's what we work from. This is kind of like our home base, so to speak. So I think a lot of what we do, a lot of our intervention anchors off of our goals. So that's why I felt like it was an important piece of the foundation to work from when we talk about intervention in our setting. So, and again, just like we learned, some of us many eons ago in school, or some of us very recently, that you assess a child or a person, you take that information, you synthesize it into, you make sense of your assessments that you've put together, you write it up, you create goals, and then your goals lead you to intervention. So again, the last bullet is so that we can work together to create effective school-based OT intervention from those goals. So that's why you're here. So one really important question to ask ourselves as we start this journey tonight together is, what should the student be able to accomplish as a direct result of receiving our special ed services, our outlined special ed services? So, and I think the answer to that is really goals. I mean, those are the answer to that question is written in our goals and objectives that end up in our IEPs. Okay, so I think that's pretty straightforward. And just again to bring in IDEA a little bit and just a little bit of history here. Again, in 2004, there was a huge amendment to IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And again, it says increased scrutiny was given to whether or not the students who received special ed were really making progress, and whether, especially our related service providers and our teachers, were accurately and objectively measuring our students' progress. And then whether that information was being accurately reported to parents on a regular and consistent basis. So I see all the smiles over the screen here, of how, we still wonder, oh, wow, is that really truly happening? So, so you just keep those smiles to yourself over there. But so then, again, a little piece of history. Before 2005, IDEA required that all annual IEP goals have measurable short-term objectives or benchmarks. So you'd have this big annual goal, and then you'd have these little itty-bitty objectives or benchmarks. again, another piece of a revision in '05 was that the law changed to say that short-term objectives or benchmarks were only required on the IEPs of those students who were assessed using alternate standards rather than grade level standards. Okay, well, as I think about that, y'all, that's like, I mean, most of my kids that, I mean, they're really not assessed. They're either using the Georgia Alternative Assessment, or I would say more of my kids are being assessed on an alternate standard rather than a grade level standard, but maybe some of yours are. And the place to find that is there's a whole testing page in the IEP. So, but then there's a but here. Although short-term objectives are no longer mandated, IEP teams do continue to use them to objectively measure students' progress. So I think to myself, man, how would I even measure a student's progress if I didn't have a short-term an objective? And I know many of you are thinking, well, golly, my IEP program, you know, the software program automatically spits out, you know, an annual objective that's not even really measurable. So you have to have those short-term benchmarks. So again, you know, laws can work for us and laws can work against us, but just so that you know, if for some reason you ran across an IEP of a student who didn't have short-term benchmarks for some reason, you might look and go, okay, well, how are they being assessed in terms of, you know, school-wide assessment or that, you know, the testing process. So again, all right, a little bit of review. What are measurable goals? And they're basically, I think, let's keep it simple. 3 key concepts. They must be skill building. Okay, so that means there's an action that goes with them. You must have a strategy for data collection in order to support the measurability of that goal. All of you know that at some point you have to collaborate, supposedly, with your teachers for the data collection. Some of you are even mandated by attorneys and lovely advocates to provide that data collection. But again, it does serve a purpose. And it can show you, if you track it over time, really if you're meeting that outcome and where you're going. So let's not always think of it as a negative. I know it consumes our life, and it can consume more of our therapy session than our therapy, but try not to let that happen if you can. And I do stand pretty firm to say that I'm not a data collector. I am a therapist, and you know, whatever it needs to be, once a month or twice a month or whatever it needs to be, I will be responsible for collecting my data. But my goal is to provide the intervention that this IEP is asking me to provide. So, and again, as you remember, I'm sure from OT school, a goal has to contain a target behavior, a condition, and criteria. Okay, so again, we'll just quickly go on. So it's easy steps. How do we do this in a school setting? Okay. Actually, again, I use my IEP a lot, y'all. It's my document that I'm working from. So I'm going to take my present levels of performance, okay? And we've talked about those when we talked about the alphabet soup last time. Where is this child? Where are they? That's where I need to anchor. That's my synthesis of what I've seen, assessment, you know, the assessment data that I've gathered on whatever I've done, whether it's been something standardized or whether it's been my clinical assessment of that student. I'm going to gather that information and pull from the present level, okay? Then I'm going to look at selected skills and behaviors that I feel really need to be targeted. If I've mentioned them in a present level as either a weak, you know, a strength or an area of challenge, then I'm probably going to want to work on them. So it seems to me, again, I don't mean to simplify it and break it down too far, but let's not make it harder than it is, okay? Then within that goal, I want to clearly define that observable behavior that I want to see change in. So how's the action going to change? And then I definitely want to establish performance criteria. How many goals have you seen written? Student will da-da-da-da-da. And it doesn't say whether it's 3 out of 5 times. It doesn't say whether it's in the classroom. It doesn't say whether it's, you know, with a pencil, with a keyboard. You know, you're like, well, what? You know, you're like, wait a minute. So again, have that criteria there, because that's where you're going to measure against, and that's where your data collection, it'll be easier to collect that data. And then, of course, be brave and write the goal. And trust me, I am not the best goal writer in the world, and I've been doing this a while. It's kind of like riding a bike. If you stop writing them, you have to kind of get back on the bicycle and learn again. So, but you just have to be brave and try to do it. And also, if you are in collaboration with your teachers, it will help. You know, what are they seeing? What are you seeing? Where does that cross? Where do you see that intersection between your eyes and their eyes? That will help you. Okay. And again, sometimes if you look at documentation books, there's SMART goals, there's Rumba goals, there's blah blah goals, but I like this one in terms of course, they have to be specific. I'm going to sound like a broken record, measurable. You want an action. You want it to be realistic, okay? And I know that's hard, especially as a new practitioner in a school setting. It's like, well, I don't know where this kid's going to be 10 months from now. And you know what? We make mistakes. You might overshoot or undershoot, just like we do in any other setting, in a hospital setting, in a clinic setting, in home health. It's no different. And goals can always be amended. Just because you write them doesn't mean you can't change them. And then, of course, you want that, that criteria, that time limited. You want to have something there that will help you really hone in on what you're doing. And then you'll see up at the top, I've got my smiley face. You want to be smart about it. So that's why I really do like the SMART acronym. So going on, and this applies to documentation too. I really haven't, I don't go into documentation too terribly much, but you really want our statements to be measurable versus non-measurable. So look at these terms and these categories. These are really non-measurable. How do you measure understands? How do you measure appropriately? And so thinks or feels. It has to be action. Okay, so we have to turn these categories into actions. So I think this is probably things that you already know. So here's where you take action. So think about it. What do? We write, we draw, we trace, we cut, we listen, we take off, we put on, we eat, we button, we zip, we jump, we hop, we turn a somersault, we run out the door at 3 o'clock. No, I'm kidding. So if you using action will take the ambiguity out, and it also will keep the lawyers and the advocates off your backs. Okay. Sorry to harp on that, but I want to protect y'all. That's the mother in me. Lisa knows I'm a very mothering type, so very protective, caretaker. And it's ugly when you sit in those meetings and they tear apart what you've put down, but there really isn't any ambiguity in cutting on a 1/4 inch line or whatever. Okay, so I think you understand my point here, and if not, please raise hands, let me know. The other thing I want to stress, and I promise I'll get off the goals soon and get to intervention, but here's what we do, y'all, and we don't, and I'm guilty as charged, hand up, pot calling the kettle black, everything. We do confuse goals with strategies, okay? And we do write goals straight from assessment criteria, but don't do it. Don't do it. You need function. You need classroom function, okay? So goals with strategies, and so I'll give you some ideas. Here's an example. Let's see, hang on. My examples are right here. Okay, so here's one. Ethan will participate in a sensory diet. Okay, that's not a goal. That's a strategy. A sensory diet is a strategy. The goal is Ethan will participate in circle time with less than 3 verbal redirections, or he will sit for 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, with 1 to 2 verbal redirections or whatever it is. That's the goal. Just think function. Don't think strategy. Okay. So that's one example. The other is writing goals straight from assessment criteria, like cutting the circle on a 1/4 inch line or whatever. It comes from Peabody, comes from a BOT or whatever criteria you might come from. Don't box yourself in like that. And don't, in terms of the exact criteria from a test, again, try to make it functional based on grade level, based on developmental level of the child. See if you, again, if you can find an intersection there, okay? Because again, this education for this child, remember, it's individualized. It doesn't need to be cookie cutter from an assessment, okay? I know that gives us a baseline and it provides a norm, but let's try to make it a little more personal to the student, okay? And the third little area there, lack of consideration of grade level curriculum. I think it's important to know what a first grader should be doing or a second grader should be doing. And if you don't know, ask the teacher. Or look at the VMI, the Beery VMI has amazing motor charts for fine, gross, visual landmarks in the front, in the back. If I've visited with y'all, I've probably shown you somewhere maybe, or I don't know if I have, but it's in the Beery VMI, the green visual motor integration assessment. It is a wonderful resource for, giving you developmental markers for students in terms of visual skills, visual motor skills, straight old fine motor, straight old gross motor. So, check those out. And again, if in doubt, check with your teachers, okay? And then last one, me, guilty as charged, putting too many measurable parts in a goal. I did this 1,000 times till I realized, what am I really measuring, and what was I reporting on? I was in an IEP meeting going, well, what am I really measuring, y'all? So an example is, like a student will write 20 of 26 uppercase letters with proper formation, top to bottom, sequencing while adhering to the baseline. Well, OTs, what are we measuring here? Are we measuring formation? Are we measuring top to bottom sequencing? Or are we measuring adhering to the baseline? Just pick one. Again, if you prioritize from your present level or your deficit areas, look and see what's the most important for this child. Is it really adhering to the baseline, or is it formation, or where's the real problem? Okay, so again, I think we complicate our lives when we do that. Just think simple, take a step back. And that doesn't mean just because, and let me back up a second. Many parents will argue, but I want that worked on. I want all three of those worked on. Well, we will work on that. Just because it's not written in a goal doesn't mean it won't get worked on. If you're working on baseline adherence, you're pretty much going to be working on formation. If it's print, you're going to go top to bottom. You're going to touch the baseline, okay? It's inherent in what we do as OTs with visual motor skills. So I hope that makes sense in terms of that, because we all see goals, and we don't have to walk around and criticize, but just you can be the impetus for change. In the next IEP, when you write the next visual motor goal, just pick one. And you can, if you need to explain why, okay? Not a problem. Okay, annual versus benchmark. Most of us work off benchmarks. And as we said, the annuals now, to me, and if anybody sees anything different, they're all spit out by IEP programs. Student will meet grade level for reading. Student will meet grade level for writing. That's meaningless to me. It's meaningless. So it's the benchmarks that really, really make our life easier. And that, like I said here at the bottom, they make our progress monitoring a lot easier too. Okay, so, and this was just a little quiz of, are these really SMART goals or not? Yes or no. Celeste will independently button the riveted fastener on her coat 3 out of 4 trials. Okay, that's, pretty decent. Lisa will write 10 lowercase letters with adherence to the baseline of paper 3 out of 4 work samples. Okay, Ian will demonstrate the ability to touch type. I'll let you ponder those, and hopefully you figured out which one is a no. Okay, again, I'm looking at action, I'm looking at function. Okay, buttoning, we're, handwriting, visual motor skills, we're writing letters, and I only picked one, and I gave a work sample. Okay, so the last one is a little too ambiguous. There's not criteria. We don't know if it's an adaptive keyboard. We don't know anything. It's just too vague, way too vague. So hope that makes sense. So why do I have to be so smart? Okay, because Celeste says you want to be smart. Even you want to be smart, okay, about it. So just to recap, it does make data collection a breeze. It makes it easier, y'all. It makes progress notes and those IEP 9-week updates easier. I think, and here's the bottom line, and here's where we go into intervention. I promised you I would, and I'll stop pontificating on goals, but it makes planning, organization, and structuring your intervention maybe not a breeze. Okay, so maybe I was very excited when I wrote that bullet on the PowerPoint, but it does help. I feel like it does, and I hope you do too. So now, all right, so take a sip of that water, run around, jump around, stick a Winter Mint Lifesaver or a one of those really cinnamony fireballs in your mouth. And so again, when we think about brainstorming intervention, okay, again, it doesn't have to be cookie cutter, y'all. It really doesn't. It needs to be, I feel like, unique, individual, if possible, creative, fun. Okay, our job can be a lot of fun. It doesn't have to be repetitive and boring, and kids don't have to moan and groan when they come to see us. Okay, so the reason that you'll see the school classroom function above the orange line is because that's what you have to keep in your mind all the time. What does this child need to do to function in that classroom or to function in that school? That is my job. That is my role. Whether it is through direct intervention or consultative services, periodic checks, whatever your district calls whatever level of service you provide, when it comes to the hard decisions on whether to provide service and intervention, that's my line, is the child functioning at a level that is sufficient, according to assessments, according to the teacher, the team. Is this child where they need to be? So again, when we think about our outcome areas, like we said before, we think about the classroom first, okay? So, and I was talking to Lisa earlier, and I said, I'm going to put sensory-based issues first because I really wanted to put it beside every one, y'all. Because, of course, we don't do sensory in school. Never, 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 never do we. And I hope you're laughing and smiling because y'all, anybody that knows me knows that I laugh at that. No, are we doing Jean Ayers sensory-based intervention? Probably not, to exactly the way Dr. Ayers would want us to do it. But we're sensory beings, and there's no way we can survive our school day without some level of sensory intervention, sensory input, whether it is whether we provide it to ourselves, whether it's provided externally by a teacher, a therapist, a parapro, whatever it might be. So I really wanted somehow, and I'm not techie enough, to interweave sensory into all these areas, okay? And this just taps the gamut, y'all, of what we do. So next, and there is a method to my madness, y'all. Handwriting did come next. So, and I bet if I took a poll and y'all would say, how many of your referrals are handwriting? 99.9% probably. Okay, so here is Celeste's view of intervention when you get a handwriting referral, okay? It's always something more than handwriting. It's never just handwriting. And I think Lisa would agree. When you start peeling the onion skin back, it's a lot more than handwriting. Handwriting is the occupation. It's the end. It's like a means to an end. Handwriting is that end product that we see, okay? There's something going on underneath. Whether it's a motor issue, a visual issue, a sensory issue, or all of the above, the end product is what we're going to see. It's the functional product of that classroom, if that makes sense. So that's why it's next. Again, and it was a toss-up between adaptive and motor. I probably should have put them side by side. In terms of, we do get referrals. Little kids, preschoolers, they can't put their jacket on, they can't hold a spoon, mostly they can't sit still, all of that. But we do work on adaptive skills, even I'd say with some of our older students who are maybe more on the severe and profound level. You're probably still working on some maybe feeding, I don't know, clothing management during toileting. you all are probably, I mean, you're out there in the trenches, so I hope your wheels are turning and you're thinking about certain students. Obviously, motor skills, both fine and gross. And I put praxis and ideation because, I don't know, a lot of our kids do have motor planning issues that affect their ability to perform in that classroom, especially with our visual motor and fine motor tasks. And then lowly, our visual skills get overlooked a lot, but hopefully not too much, because as another one of my bandwagons you'll see is that visual skills affect our kids a lot more than we think. And I'm both acuity, I'm talking about both acuity, like the 20/20 portion piece, and I'm also talking about functional vision, like the way the eyes track and team and saccades and all that. So, and we'll have more information coming in either later webinars or there is tons of information on Cobb Connects and the LMS for visual skills for kids. So, and then social emotional skills too. You know, I know that speech works a lot of social, but I think we do too. And it's okay to touch that area. So as we think about classroom intervention and we think about these different areas, let's also think about basics of when you look at a child's handwriting or you look at a motor skill or even visual, how seating. Always look at their seating and their positional modification. See if there's something you can change. Is it the way they're sitting? Is it where they're sitting? Is it an angle? Is it just think, go back to basics. Like if you think of the foundation of a house. So your intervention, how are they seated? What's their posture like? Okay. What do you need to work on maybe to improve their posture when they do sit or try to perform one of these bullets that you're looking at right now on the PowerPoint slide? Okay. Even, you know, social skills. Are they standing up all the time, or are they laying in someone else's space, a classmate's space, and the classmate gets irritated, and then there's this conflict. So you can have social problems even related to where a child is sitting. Okay. And then just overall, sometimes you see problems, maybe not so much in the handwriting area, but really the sensory area and social emotional, with just overall classroom management. And you probably see this, I know some of us see this more so in preschool classrooms. Our preschool or even elementary teachers that are really highly organized and highly structured, some of our children suffer a little less with their sensory-based needs and maybe their social emotional needs than a really disorganized classroom. So if you, in terms of intervention, if you have tips and things like that, you can provide a teacher with helping, you know, just with picture schedules, better organization of a piece of the room, like if there's a little, you know, a visual motor station or a sensory station or a, you know, a fine motor station anywhere. And of course, I'm thinking younger classrooms, but again, if for an older child, if you're working keyboarding for a middle or high schooler, where is it, first of all? How are they positioned? What is the screen like? It's all part of our job in terms of intervention. So again, you don't have to go out and have all this fancy stuff in order to provide even just those basics to help start, you know, sort of knocking around at what might be going on and how you can help fix it. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so with sensory-based issues, there are a lot of different programs. Here's a plug for next month, October. Gwen Wild, October 6th, Tuesday, October 6th, 7:30. She has an amazing program called Sensational Brain. No, Brainworks. Brainworks, I'm sorry. Her website is Sensational Brain. So it's www.sensationalbrain.com. And she has a program called Brainworks. And she puts together what is a lot like if anyone knows what Boardmaker or Picture Exchange, like PECS, little square laminated cards, and she'll put together like a sensory diet, for lack of a better word, or a sensory program, and it's kind of color coded with yellow, green, and different colors. And she will be going over all of that next month. But in between now and then, I encourage you to go to Gwen's website and look at her sensory information. In terms of intervention, I believe in movement helps children learn. I think you have to be an astute detective to know what kind of movement they need or what they're seeking in terms of sensory movement. And what I mean by that is, do they look for something regular, irregular? What are they? Watch their body, watch their actions to see if you can be the detective to figure out what they're looking for. And many times, and Gwen will talk about this as well, our kids need more bang for their buck. They need more intensity, and we can't always give it in a classroom setting. But I do think it's important for us to try to help teachers understand that our kids do need more bang for their buck, and their registration, their understanding of the sensory input is very different than, his or hers, a teacher or ours. So as we very much try to bring them down because they're disrupting the class and they're hyperactive and they're disruptive, it may be that they need to go even a little, maybe not higher, but a little more intense, and maybe just a little bit longer in a more structured sensory activity to reach that threshold and then come back down and be just right. So I hope that makes sense, that we might need to give them in a structured way, not haphazard, not crazy, but give them a little more. Can you increase the frequency, the intensity? And really the intensity would help. If you can increase the intensity, it might shorten the duration, actually. So that's sort of where I am with sensory based. And with younger kids, I encourage whole class activities if it's possible. Even, the kids all hop from circle to the snack table, or they all do, 15 jumping jacks, or try to, before they sit down to do spelling or something like that. So the teacher doesn't have to think about something separate. What I found with sensory diets, quote unquote, or sensory programs is, first of all, it's very hard for a teacher to implement it for one child. They're busy, their lives are crazy, they forget, even though it's up on their little cork board right beside their desk, they forget. So, and what might work for Celeste this week may not work for Celeste next week. So that's not to say that there shouldn't be something structured, but I personally have found a little more success when there is when the teacher knows, okay, anytime there's a transition, I'm going to try X, Y, Z. Whatever you feel is appropriate, one, for that teacher can handle, and what those children might need. And a little bit of movement never hurt any child. And you're probably thinking, well, everybody's not on my caseload. And I understand that. But if you can get the teacher to buy in, she will do more with that child that is on your caseload, and she will hone in her attention to that child on your caseload, even though she's got all 10 or 12 or 21 or 25 of those children doing something, okay? Does it take a brave and organized teacher? Yeah. Will all teachers do it? No. So you pick and choose, and y'all have heard me call it the Alexander backdoor method, and sometimes I wait. I wait for the right moment, and I don't always do that in the beginning. Maybe it is that I ask for something weighted for that child, or something, compression, whatever it might be. But ultimately, the whole class is going to function more effectively if there is accurate sensory-based movement provided for those children. It helps with everything down that list: handwriting, adaptive skills, motor skills, all of that. So I hope that helps where sensory-based issues are concerned. There are, if you're not familiar with the ALERT program, or How Does Your Engine Run, that is a great program that basically has a lot of different tools that you can use, anything from, things that children see to things that children put in their mouth, oral things that, even olfactory kinds of sensory-based activities. and you do a lot with the child, and you ask the child, is your engine high? Is your engine just right? Is your engine too low? And there's like a meter, and there's red, green, and yellow. So if you're not familiar with the alert program or how does your engine run, Google it, and you'll see it. And they have workshops. It's great information, and I can't remember if I put any of that on the LMS. I may not have, because it was copyrighted, and I haven't gotten permission yet, so I'll have to get permission, and I'll do that soon in my spare time, but I promise I will. So anyway, the alert program is, I think right now, if you sort of concentrated on the alert program and then also Gwen Wild's information for sensory-based issues, you're probably in good shape. That probably is enough right now to get you where you need to be. In terms of brushing and therapeutic listening, I love all of that and the above, but it's very hard to do in a school setting. And Lisa and I talk about this all the time. Brushing and therapeutic listening are very powerful vestibular tools, and you can very easily make a mess of a kid if you don't have teachers who are good hawkeyes at seeing things. So again, if you've got a teacher that you've worked with for a while and you trust their judgment, they have you're sort of giving them the therapy glasses, you're teaching them, giving them your therapy eyes, and you want to give something a try, you could, but those are really hard sensory techniques to implement in a school setting. So if you want to talk one-on-one offline about that, I'm happy to, myself or Lisa. We both have had many of discussion on that. So anyway, so I'll leave it, as that. The last thing I think you can do that is a gift to any child and any teacher for kids who just need more or organizing is heavy work. Have them wipe the tables, have them push chairs, have them carry a stack of books from one side of the room or to the other. Have that child be the errand child, okay? The heavy work, you can never go wrong. It can't hurt a child. You can't overstimulate them. You can't make a mess of them with heavy work. It's just safe, and it's organizing. So, and I know that I have heavy work strategies on the LMS, on Cobb Connects. So log in, and I know you'll find tons. If not, email me. I'll send you what I have in my files. Okay. So I think I want to be mindful of the time. Okay. Handwriting. I think that handwriting, there's tons of different programs. There's Handwriting Without Tears. There's First Strokes. There is one called Size Matters. And don't Google Size Matters because you'll get something pornographic. The real website for that is Real OT Solutions. The lady's name is Bev Moskowitz. She'll be presenting for us in March on JUMP. So make sure I'll give you, all of that information, early on so you can log in for March. But basically, what I'd like for you to look for, again, foundational things. Do these children's, do their their hands, what do they look like? Do they have arches? What is their muscle tone like? Are they 3 years old and we're asking them to write their name in preschool? I mean, let's be sensible, okay? Are they 19 and we still want a signature? Let's be sensible, okay? But again, there are many, many things with children that are fun to do that help build hand skills to get them better prepared for writing. You don't have to just hammer a pencil and a paper. My own personal experience is it doesn't help. I do very fun putty things. I do things called hot dogs. We roll the putty between our hands. I give it a name. We make hamburgers. We play hide and seek. We play detective. We do dot writing where we put dots. I might have like a dowel and we put dots in the putty. Just all kinds of, make it engaging, make it fun. So if you're working on those foundational hand skills before you even get to the visual or the visual perceptual piece, okay? Also, fun exercises like twirling the pencil between your fingers for like older kids, coordination, 3rd and 4th graders like that challenge of juggling pencil baton. I think also working with small things like pennies, clothespins, and making games, not just here, would you move these clothespins from one side of the can to the other? Make a game out of it. Ask the child to make a game out of it. There's that praxis and that ideation with, thinking and motor for the fine motor piece of it. A lot of kids finger plays, like they can't do, they can't intertwine their fingers, or they can't do like oh gosh, what do they call that with the yarn, like you can something witch's broom or something like that. I do it where with the Itsy Bitsy Spider, I don't call it that for older kids. I call it finger walking. Can your fingers do the walking, and can your mouth do the talking? So those
Cat's Cradle, Celeste.
Cat, thank you. Hello, witches. Listen to me, Cat's Cradle. Thank you.
You know what? Witch's Broom is one of the Cat's Cradles. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Thank you. So, yeah, thanks, Lisa. See why we're a team. It's we thank God she brain shares with me. Okay. So anyway, we're on the brain sharing program, but again, and for sizing and position on paper, y'all, it's body awareness. Get them away from the paper. Can they jump a certain distance? Can you pretend you have a piece of paper on the floor and you have one line and then the next line? Can they accurately move their entire body? It has to be a whole body process to me to get that body awareness and that understanding of space and spatial skills. They're never going to place a letter on the line accurately if they don't have body awareness. And I shouldn't say never. It's going to be very hard. How's that? I should never say never. It would be very difficult for them. That's one thing I found. We draw a picture of our body. I get the big butcher paper. We go out in the hallway. They lay down. I draw a picture of them. They think it's really cool. I'm like, this is the size of your body. We stand it up on the wall. We put eyes. And so then we talk about, okay, where does this letter fit in these lines? The other thing that I've done in my old gray hair age, is I let them look for more mistakes now. Well, what do you be the OT? What do you think's wrong? And I get my highlighter and I let them look. And then the other thing I do is I congratulate them on the letters I love. Oh my goodness, this is the letter I love on this line. Do you know why I love this letter? And no, why do you love that letter? See, they don't even know why I love that letter. It might be that the formation is exactly right. It might be that it hit the line. It might be that it's, it's print and it should be print, and it's, whatever, or it's cursive and it should be cursive. It wasn't a mix of print and cursive. Whatever the scenario might be, I think we don't, in terms of intervention with our school children, we don't give them enough credit sometimes, and we just spoon feed them and we give it and we're like, here it is, that's not right, or let's fix this, or that looks great, but they don't know why it looks great, and they can't identify it themselves, so that if they are sitting in the classroom when we're not there the other 4 days a week, they can look at their paper and go, uh-oh, what would Miss Celeste say? Or, what would Miss Lisa say? Or what would Miss Misty say? Or what would Miss Karen say? What would it be? So I like to give them more accountability. That's the word I'm looking for. So I could talk about handwriting all night. You can pick a method that you love. I just like handwriting without tears because it's fun. It's developmentally sound. They have keyboarding without tears now. First strokes is not bad. Size Matters is not bad. A lot of our therapists have used Size Matters and they like it a lot. And I'm old school. It's still really hard for me. The cursive method of handwriting without tears is very vertical. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's very vertical. It does not have a slant. Jan Olson's premise is that we've learned a slant. We were taught a slant when we were taught handwriting, that ultimately you don't slant. So her method is very vertical and it looks very different. And a lot of schools and teachers just don't buy into it because it looks so different. Okay, so here I'm dating myself. So I learned loops and other groups, went to a Mary Bembo workshop in 1995 when I was a CODA, and it looks more like Zahner Blosser or the other ones they use. It has a little bit of a slant to it. It mimics Montessori cursive to a T. But I love that Mary Bimbo, and she had it years ago, visual icons, like for cursive A, cursive C. She uses something called a clock climber. So a child has to understand the face of a clock in order to be able to form that letter. Well, I know we're in digital nation now, but we have to teach them those things. But I think for everything on, and I know I still have you staring at the same PowerPoint slide, and I apologize, but a lot of our kids need visual anchors. They have no visual framework. They can't close their eyes and understand what an E looks like, or picture an F, whether it's print or cursive or uppercase or lowercase. They can't picture it in their mind. So I say draw it on their backs, draw it on their arms, multi-sensory. If you have a child that is just has no understanding of letters in terms of formation, you have to make it multi-sensory. The other tool I love to use for handwriting and even sometimes visual stuff, I love Wikisticks, Wikki, Wikisticks. They're these long wax sticks. You can make them into anything you want. I love them. The other thing I like to use are these little styrofoam nuggets called Magic Noodles. And they look like the peanuts that come in your big UPS box. But if you wet them a little bit, they stick together. And you can make whatever letter, whatever size you want. So Magic Noodles, you can get them at Michael's. Wikisticks, I would recommend ordering them on Amazon. That's the cheapest. You can get them at school supply stores, but I would do Amazon. The other thing I love to do for a sensory piece and handwriting is the squiggle writers. It's called a squiggle writer, and they're like $6.95. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them at the TheraPro catalog. But it's a pen that vibrates, and you can use it if you have a child who just needs some vibration, maybe to their face or their arms, or just a fun, different way to have a child form letters and have some fun out of it. Okay. Oh my gosh, Lord have mercy, where does time go? Okay. All right, how can I, okay, quickly, enough on handwriting. Adaptive skills, there are methods for dressing, shoe tying, all kinds of things. If all fails and you're not sure how to teach buttoning or snapping or zipping, Google like a TheraPro catalog, and they have little cards. You find things on the internet. But I find, in a nutshell, I have children do it on clothing off of their body first, like on a table or somewhere, or even like if I bring a big jacket or a big shirt, they do it on me. So they can see. They need to visually see what they're doing. And again, it has to do with their motor planning, their hand skills, their dexterity. So if you feel like there are deficits there, work those little component levels of if you feel like it's dexterity or if you feel like it's vision, something like that. I think y'all are astute enough to figure out the dressing piece of it. I keep it to putting on and off the backpack, the jackets, and managing clothing during toileting. I don't work on shoe tying unless they're in middle school and they got to do it for gymnastics. For gym class. They have to dress out and change shoes. I know parents want to work on that, but it's not really a school-based goal. What I tell parents is there are a lot of components in shoe tying. There's memory, there's sequencing, there's motor planning. I'm sure that I'm seeing those problems elsewhere too, not just in shoe tying. So that's how I justify my work on those little component skills of memory, sequencing, all of those components that make up shoe tying. Okay. And again, if you need specifics on how to do that, let me know. One last thing about dressing in any way, especially if you're working with kids outside of a school setting and you're doing shoe tying, I like backwards chaining. I like starting with a tied shoe and working backwards if I can. or clothing, taking it off first. And it doesn't matter how old they are, okay? I don't know. I have found success with using pieces of backward chaining and forward chaining. You may not agree, but I'd love to talk with you about it and hear your success stories too, okay? Motor, oh my gosh, we need a whole nother webinar on motor. Oh my gosh. Gross motor, most of the time your PT is going to be working a lot on that, but it doesn't mean that you can't do some gross motor activities, in terms of balance, hopping on one foot. Maybe that's affecting their visual skills. Maybe that's affecting their ability to pull their pants up, or some kind of balance issue in terms of, not being able to complete a task. Visual skills, hugely important. I do a lot of tracking, fun tracking, ball play. I do, I don't do like finding letters on worksheets and stuff like that. I do a lot of Where's Waldo, like seek and find kind of things. I have card games that are like Where's Waldo. I do a lot of I Spy. Let's see, what else do? I do a lot of target throwing. Why can't you throw a beanbag or a tennis ball at the spelling words or the letters in the spelling words? Why can't the child write the spelling word on an upright plane, upright surface, and then do a visual target? Or you call out the letters, or you have them call out a letter and throw the ball at it. Bowling, even backwards bowling, get some milk jugs, stick letters on the milk jugs, and have kids bowl. Again, I think when it makes it more fun, it makes it stick, it's memorable, it's sensory based, but we don't do sensory at school, y'all, okay? So, and especially, kids they will respond to that, I think. I have had more fun in my job and more success. And is somebody going to come by and tell me, oh, well, you're doing clinic-based therapy, Celeste? Not really, because I'm working off the IEP goals and I'm working on spelling words that are in this academic curriculum. The way I choose my therapeutic medium of how I do it is my choice. I'm the OT. It's my clinical judgment of how I do that. So that's how I combat that commentary of, well, you're doing clinic-based or medical model. Not really. I'm doing therapy and I am abiding by the IEP and I am working on the academic goals. I'm making sure that I'm working toward the academic goal on that IEP, and I can prove it and I can justify it. Okay. The social emotional goes around to everything. I do talk about, well, who do you play with on the playground, or who do you sit next to in the cafeteria, or can your friend next to you help you keep your things in your desk a little bit better? Things like that. Okay. I just want to finish what I have here. Here is a diagram. The other thing I like is being accurate in my documentation to a family about visual motor skills, hand position, pencil grips. Let's use our professional language. Let's not be over their head, but let's show them, okay, this is called this, but then be able to tell a parent maybe why. Is it poor trunk strength? How old is the child? When, is this developmentally appropriate? Are they 17 years old and still holding a pencil like that? I mean, so again, like we said, use your head, but here is a diagram for you. You may have other ones, but this happens to be one that I think has a lot of different variations of what we see in our schools. Okay, so that'll be there for you. These are a couple of books that I love. This Kinesthetic Classroom. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. A lot of movement and activities. Again, got to get your teachers to buy into it. So read through it, take your time, take the Alexander backdoor approach. Don't walk in and go, I got this great book, and let me show you everything I know. They will turn away and go, get out of my classroom. This book on the left is really more a collaborative model of how do you get your teacher to collaborate with you. And it's got forms and strategies and putting the pieces together and working as an IEP team. Now, again, I hear that laughter over there of those of you who have really very compartmentalized IEP teams, and everybody does their own thing and everybody has their own puzzle piece, and it never quite comes together. But just try to be the catalyst for maybe a little change. Okay. This is a newer book. It's very thick. It's a big book called Best Practices for OT in Schools. If you don't have it, I do recommend maybe spending your stipend money. It's $99, but is very well worth your money. It has intervention, it has evaluation, it has IEP process, it has anything you could think of where school-based therapy is concerned. So I highly recommend maybe using your stipend money for this book. Another one that I recently found is, I like this one too. So if you've got stipend money, it might be worth your time. It is, again, how you can be more inclusive in the classroom. And y'all, and I think that that's where we've got to try. I'm not saying we have to do everything in the classroom, but I think if we've got a guidebook that can help us integrate ourselves in a little bit more, it will be helpful, and we will be able to advocate for our services a little bit more. Yes. Hey, Lisa, I know. Oops, I got to stop talking, right? Yeah, Lisa, you there?
Celeste, no, I couldn't hear you for about 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right, let me go back then. I'm sorry.
I don't know if other people had the problem, but I stopped hearing you.
Okay, did you hear me?
No, not that slide. I saw that slide.
Okay, here. I was talking about.
I love the Kinesthetic Classroom, but then nothing else.
Okay, Kinesthetic Classroom. This book on the left is a great book in terms of giving you strategies for collaboration with teachers, administrators. There are collaborative forms. I think there's data forms. It's a good book. It may not be the very first one you want to run out and buy in terms of priority, but I just wanted you to know it's out there, and it's recent. It's new. It's was published last year or year before. So it's not an old book. Okay. So it may give you strategies for, again, being the catalyst for that change. And like I said, I see you guys chuckling out there about your IEP teams that are very separate, and maybe the puzzle pieces never come together, but there's always hope. So, and you could be the catalyst for change. You never know. So this one is what I was saying is, spend your stipend money. It's $99, but it is worth every single little penny. It is your A to Z. It has assessment. It has IEP. It has treatment for vision, motor planning, fine motor, feeding, dyspraxia. I mean, everything. It's a very, very good book. It backs it up with theory and evidence. So when you got to sit in that meeting and you've got your Uber parents that want evidence, you've got evidence. Okay. It's a very sound resource. It is written by, as you see, fellows, people who have been, Barbara Chandler's been in school-based therapy longer than Methuselah, I think. You've got Winnie Dunn, who does the sensory piece. She's very involved in the sensory aspect of it. So again, it's a very sound tool, and it's very comprehensive. It's you can't tell from the way I took the picture, but it's a very thick book. This last one, I think it has been helpful for me in terms of giving me ideas and wording and just strategies for more inclusive work in the classroom and with teachers. It even starts with the history of inclusion and moving forward. I like it. I like it a lot. It's sort of a different angle than I've read before. And it talks about just some alternate modifications and even alternate wording when you come up against a closed teacher or a teacher who really just doesn't understand behavior and doesn't understand how sometimes we can provide a lot of good behavioral support for our children. I'm not saying we're ABA people, but we can, for instance, it gives you strategies for kids who move a lot, kids who want to be leaders, kids who appear to be shy, kids who shut down, kids who make noise. It's got this chart, and it gives you a breakdown of what you can do for strategies in the classroom. And really, y'all, that's where the rubber meets the road. We can pull them out all day long. But they have to function when we're not there. I'm not saying don't pull them out. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, can we get them to generalize what we do when we're not there? So I think this is a nice book, a nice handbook for helping, giving us some additional tools for inclusive school practice. Okay. So those were just a couple of resources. Thank you so much, everybody.